One of the most exploitable beliefs we hold relates to the feeling of not being good enough. We may not be aware that deep down we hold this attitude, but we can look at the signs that reveal it. Here are some traits that reflect the feeling of not being good enough. Engaging in people-pleasing behaviors, agreeableness at the detriment of sincerity, self-sacrificing, feeling responsible for the feelings of others, difficulty saying no, difficulty admitting mistakes or even over-apologizing, fear of being criticized or punished for their mistakes, needing other people's approval to do what is right for them, fear of doing something bad, needing authority figures to validate them, over-explaining themselves, deriving value from the way they are perceived by others, and a high tolerance for unhealthy dynamics. People who don't feel good enough often try to overcompensate through the following patterns of behavior. They try to prove themselves worthy to the world. They try to fix other people and their problems. They accept too much responsibility even if it isn't theirs to carry. They try to keep everybody happy, and they are workaholics and perfectionists. Sometimes they craft an image of authority so that they can't be challenged by others, which can lead to narcissism. So how can the media exploit these attitudes? Marketing campaigns work because they claim to sell you something that would add value to you. They are not selling only a product, but an image. You want to be at the level of value and prestige as those people you admire? Well, wear what they wear, drink what they drink, and drive what they drive. If you feel there is something lacking in you, then you can be convinced to feel it, which is a distraction from understanding where it stems from. The media appeals to your desire to do good, which is why they often use ideals and positive values to convince you of their good intentions. They don't focus too much on the details or the consequences of how these ideals will be implemented in the world, because they know that people will project their own ideas of what these things are onto the media, and they will trust their positive intentions. Words they often use in these scenarios are generally abstractions like democracy, freedom, equality, safety, security, or fairness. They also appeal to emotion for impact. They use name-calling, defamation, discrediting dissent, shaming, and they display outrage in order to elicit similar reactions from you. It's like throwing hooks and seeing if they catch on. An example of the kind of speech that the media uses is, "Do you support the troops?" Well, what does that mean? Of course you support the troops, but do you agree with the unjust wars that are fought in the name of democracy for which the government is responsible? Well, there is no place for nuance in these questions. You can either be for or against, and due to this, the waters get muddied, and divisions are created between people purely with language tricks. The desire to do good and keep people happy makes you very easily affected by displays of negative emotions like sadness or anger, which makes you want to fix people's problems. However, it may be the case that these negative emotions can stem from a false interpretation of reality or from narcissism. In these scenarios, it is the responsibility of the people experiencing these emotions to deal with them, otherwise you may end up in unhealthy dynamics. Negative emotions are messengers telling us something about ourselves. If we do away with them, it's like doing away with one of our senses. The media sometimes portrays having negative emotions as damaging and destructive to a person, yet negative emotions have their purposes. They cannot be removed from our experience, in the same way that a plant cannot block photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight. It is something that is arising in us as a consequence of a pre-existing condition or predisposition in ourselves and an external stimulus. If we want to be empowered, we will not blame or try to control the stimulus. Instead, we will look within ourselves and understand our patterns of behavior so that we don't become victims of circumstance. An example of how the media exploits your desire to do good and fix people is the Naira testimony. This was a false testimony given before the Congressional Human Rights in 1990 by a 15-year-old girl. The media heavily publicized it, which led to it being used as a justification for the US to back Kuwait in the Gulf War.
August 2nd, 1990. Iraq attacks Kuwait, claiming the Kuwaitis are slant drilling into Iraq's oil fields. U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush pushes for a land war against Iraq. But polls show the U.S. public is split 50-50 on that idea. Then comes this eyewitness testimony before a congressional committee from a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl. The claim is she cannot be identified for fear of reprisals.
While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor.
The U.S. public is outraged. The result? Support for land war zooms. It's a turning point. Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions. One small problem. There never were any incubator baby deaths, not one. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's investigative flagship program, The Fifth Estate, reveals the girl to be the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, given her lines and coached in acting by the giant American PR firm Hill & Knowlton. It's one phase in a $10 million joint U.S.-Kuwaiti campaign of deception. This man is lying.
I myself buried 14 newborn babies that had been taken from their incubators.
This man is lying.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
There were a lot of people who participated in a conspiracy. Yes, an out-and-out conspiracy of fake organizations, false documents, fraud, and disinformation. So, if a new man named Bush is in the White House and helps engineer a brazen deception in order to achieve global geopolitical goals, as well as domestic and personal ones, it wouldn't be a first, would it?